Look at him, the king of the dead, Hades, wrapped in shadows, ruling a world of ghosts, fire, and darkness. For thousands of years, stories have told us that he is a monster, a cruel, evil villain who hides in the dark. Now, look at her, Persephone, the beautiful, innocent goddess of spring, surrounded by bright flowers, sunshine, and life. The story you were told goes like this. The dark, evil king came up from the ground, grabbed the crying, terrified girl, and dragged her down into hell against her will. He kidnapped her, tricked her into eating a magic fruit, and made her his prisoner forever. It is a scary story, a story about a helpless victim and a cruel monster. But what if I told you that almost every single word of that story is a lie? What if the monster was actually the kindest, most respectful man in the entire Greek world? And what if the helpless victim was actually a brilliant, powerful woman who wanted to escape her home? What if she didn't eat the magical fruit by mistake? What if she ate it on purpose so she could become the most powerful queen in the universe? Forget the fairy tales. Forget what they taught you in school. This is the true story of Hades and Persephone, and it is the greatest, darkest love story never told. To understand the truth, we first need to look at Persephone's life before she met Hades. Persephone was the daughter of Zeus, the king of the gods, and Demeter, the goddess of nature, farming, and the harvest. If you think having gods for parents is amazing, think again. Zeus was never around. He was too busy ruling the sky and causing trouble. So Persephone was raised entirely by her mother, Demeter. Demeter loved her daughter. She loved her more than anything in the world, but she loved her too much. Demeter was terrified that something bad would happen to her perfect, beautiful little girl. So what did she do? She locked her away. Persephone lived in a beautiful sunny garden, far away from the other gods. There were always green trees, singing birds, and blooming flowers. It looked like paradise, but to Persephone, it felt like a golden cage. She was not allowed to leave. She was not allowed to speak to boys. She was not allowed to make her own decisions. Demeter controlled every single second of her life. Demeter even refused to call her by her real name. She just called her Kore, which simply means the maiden or the little girl. But Persephone was not a little girl anymore. As she grew older, she would sit by the edge of her garden, looking out at the big, dangerous, exciting world. She didn't just want to plant daisies and sing songs. She felt a dark, powerful energy inside her. She wanted to rule. She wanted to matter. She wanted to be a queen. But as long as she stayed with her mother, she would always just be the little flower girl. She was trapped, she was suffocating, and she desperately needed a way out. Far below the sunny gardens, deep underground, lived Hades. Hades was the oldest brother of Zeus. When the brothers defeated the Titans and divided the world, Zeus took the beautiful sky, Poseidon took the exciting ocean, and Hades was given the Underworld, the land of the dead. It was a cold, dark, and silent place. There was no sun, no wind, and no life. Only shadows, gray rivers, and millions of ghosts who had left the world above. Hades did not choose this job, but he accepted it. Unlike his brothers, who spent their days throwing parties on Mount Olympus, starting wars and making a mess of the human world, Hades actually worked. He sat on his dark throne made of black stone, judging the souls of the dead. He was strict, yes. He was serious, yes. But he was also fair. He was the only god who always kept his promises. But doing the hardest job in the universe takes a toll. Hades was incredibly lonely. He had all the wealth in the world. Every diamond, ruby, and piece of gold hidden in the earth belonged to him. But what good is gold when you have no one to share it with? He watched his brothers fall in love 100 times while he sat alone in the dark. Until one day, everything changed. Hades rarely came up to the surface of the earth, but one afternoon he had to travel to the surface for a brief moment. As he was riding his black chariot, he heard something strange, a laugh. It wasn't the fake, polite laugh of the gods on Olympus. It was a real, bright, beautiful sound. He stopped his horses and looked through the trees. There, in a sunny meadow, was Persephone. Hades froze. He had never seen anything so beautiful in his entire endless life. It wasn't just her face, it was her energy. She was full of life, but he could also see a quiet sadness in her eyes, the sadness of someone who is trapped. He recognized that sadness because he felt it too. In that single moment, the Lord of the Dead fell completely, hopelessly in love. Now, if this were Zeus or Poseidon, they would have just grabbed the girl right then and there. But Hades was different. Hades respected the rules. Hades was a gentleman. So he went to his brother Zeus and asked politely and formally if he could marry Persephone. Zeus, who never wanted to deal with drama, had a problem. He knew that Demeter would never allow her precious daughter to move underground. So, Zeus, being the terrible father that he was, came up with a cowardly plan. He smiled at Hades and said, "I have my blessing to marry her, but Demeter will never let her go. If you want her, you will have to take her when Demeter isn't looking. I will help you." A few days later, Persephone was wandering in her garden, feeling bored and trapped. Suddenly, she saw a flower she had never seen before, a narcissus. It was incredibly beautiful, glowing with a strange, magical light. Curious, Persephone walked away from her friends and reached out to pick the glowing flower. As her fingers touched the stem, the ground began to shake. The earth rumbled with a terrible noise. The grass split open, creating a massive, dark crack in the ground. Out of the darkness burst 4 terrifying black horses, pulling a dark iron chariot, and holding the reins was Hades. Before Persephone could scream, Hades scooped her up into his chariot. He didn't hurt her, he didn't strike her, but he held her tight as the horses turned around and plunged back into the dark hole. In a second, the earth snapped shut, the sun was gone, and Persephone was falling into the world of the dead. At first, she was absolutely terrified. It was pitch black, the air was cold. She cried out for her mother. But as her eyes adjusted to the dark, she noticed something strange. The scary monster holding her wasn't hurting her. In fact, Hades looked nervous. He held her gently. He wrapped his warm, heavy cloak around her shoulders to protect her from the freezing underground wind. They arrived at the palace of Hades, a massive, beautiful castle made of black obsidian and silver, glowing softly in the dark. Hades stopped the chariot. He stepped down, offered his hand, and helped her out. He looked at her, his scary silver eyes filled with genuine kindness, and said, "Welcome to your new kingdom." The stories say Persephone cried every day and begged to go home. The stories say Hades locked her in a dungeon. None of that is true. When they entered the palace, Hades did not force her to marry him. He did not lock her in a room. But Persephone was angry. "You kidnapped me," she yelled at him. Hades looked down, feeling deeply ashamed. He explained that her father, Zeus, had told him to do it. He told her how he had watched her, how he saw that she was unhappy in her golden cage, and how he wanted to give her a real throne. "I don't want a prisoner," Hades told her softly. "I want a queen, but I will never force you to love me. You are safe here."
And then he left her alone. He gave her space. Days turned into weeks. Hades was quiet. When they ate dinner together, he actually listened to her. He asked for her opinion. He treated her like an equal, not like a stupid little girl. One day, Persephone was feeling homesick for her flowers. Hades didn't say a word. He went deep into the caves and used his magic to build her a magnificent underground garden. He made trees out of solid gold, flowers out of sparkling diamonds, and grass out of emeralds.
Persephone slowly realized the truth. The dark, scary king of the underworld was actually a gentle, caring, and respectful man. And more importantly, down here in the dark, she wasn't treated like a child. Down here, the ghosts bowed to her. Down here, she had power. For the first time in her life, Persephone fell in love, and she realized she never wanted to go back to her mother's controlling garden. While Persephone was falling in love in the dark, the world above was dying. When Demeter found out her daughter was missing, she completely lost her mind. Demeter's sadness turned into pure, destructive rage. Demeter abandoned her duties. The green grass turned brown and died. The rivers froze. For the first time in history, winter came to the world. Up on Olympus, Zeus panicked. The human beings began to starve. Zeus realized he had made a terrible mistake. He called his messenger Hermes and commanded him to fly down into the underworld. "Tell Hades to give the girl back," Zeus ordered, "or the world will end." Hermes delivered the message to Hades and Persephone. Hades' heart broke into a million pieces. He had finally found the love of his life, but he knew he couldn't let the human world die. He looked at Persephone with profound sadness and said, "You must go back to your mother. I will not keep you here while the world suffers." Persephone's heart dropped. Go back to being treated like a child? Under ancient magical laws, if you eat the food of the underworld, you belong to the underworld forever. Persephone knew this rule very well. She was a very smart goddess. As she prepared to leave, she walked through Hades' underground garden. She saw a single dark red fruit, a pomegranate. Hades didn't trick her. Hades didn't force her. Persephone looked at the fruit, looked at her dark kingdom, and made a choice. She cracked the pomegranate open. With a determined look in her eyes, she took 6 tiny red seeds from the fruit, and she ate them. She didn't make a mistake. She made a contract. She secured her crown. When Persephone returned to the surface, the sun came out. Demeter ran to her daughter, hugging her tight. Instantly, the snow melted and spring returned to the earth. But Demeter noticed something was different. Her daughter didn't look like a scared little girl anymore. She stood tall. She wore dark clothes. She had the cold, powerful look of a queen. "My child," Demeter asked, suddenly terrified, "did you eat anything while you were down there?" Persephone looked her mother straight in the eyes and smiled. "Yes, mother, I ate 6 seeds of the pomegranate." Demeter screamed. The law was absolute. Zeus had to step in to make a compromise. For 6 months of the year, Persephone would stay on the surface with her mother. But for the other 6 months of the year, Persephone must return to the underworld to rule beside her husband. And that is how the seasons were created. But the truth of the story is clear. Persephone wasn't a victim who was dragged away. She was a brilliant strategist who outsmarted her controlling mother and the king of the gods. She found a way to have her freedom, her power, and the love of a good man. When you read ancient Greek texts, the humans didn't call her the flower girl. They called her the Dread Queen. She was the one who made the final terrifying decisions in the land of the dead. Hades loved her so much that he gave her equal power over his entire kingdom. So, the next time someone tells you that Hades was a monster who kidnapped an innocent girl, you know the dark truth. The monster was the only one who treated her with respect, and the innocent girl was the one who chose to rule hell.